Koslowitz. Some of you may know me from Bina, where I write the prescriptive parenting column. When Rabbi Goodman asked me to speak for the Epic Parenting Summit and to support the incredible work the organization does, we had a little bit of a hard time deciding on the topic. I have two topics that I specialize in, and Rabbi Goodman and I were back and forth over which one. One topic is temperament-based parenting, parenting children based on the temperament traits, like the personality traits they were born with. And the other topic is post-traumatic parenting, which is about giving our children a healthy childhood, even if ours wasn't, or giving our children a healthy childhood after recent stressors in our life have left us feeling depleted. And then I decided, why not do both? Why not combine the two and talk about parenting challenging children, which is both about temperament and how they're wired from birth, and also about post-traumatic parenting, because parenting a child that is challenging is in and of itself traumatic in ways that most parents don't realize. So we're going to talk about both of those. If I had a penny for every time someone came into my office and said, my child is having challenges because I'm a bad mother, our kids don't know how to behave because we're bad parents, we're not set up to be parents, we don't know what we're doing, I'd probably not be speaking with you right now because I'd be on permanent vacation. Here's the thing. In fact, research shows that many of the traits that parents believe they can control about their children are actually hardwired from birth and are not that changeable. The child came that way out of the box. They were born that way. They were designed that way by Hashem, and He does not make any mistakes. When a child is wild, active, moves too much, withdrawn, anxious, clingy, shy, moody, a lot of those traits that we think have to do with our parenting have absolutely nothing to do with us, other than maybe genetically, like which genes we may have passed down. They have a lot to do with literally the way this kid came out of the box. If that's the case, I practice my profession, right? If so much is hardwired at birth, what's the point of a child psychologist, right? What's the point of a parenting class if you're saying that, basically when they're born, it's all foretold and it's all figured out? Because although the behavioral, the traits, right, those personality characteristics, although we talk about temperament in children, right, being very wild and active, needing a lot of movement, being more friendly, being more prone to withdrawal, being more moody, being calmer, right, all of those traits are hardwired from birth. The behavioral expression of them, what we do with those traits, right, that is not hardwired. So when you could be somebody who needs to move a lot, and that can be that disruptive wild kid in class that the mother gets a phone call about every single day, or you can be that kid with endless energy to give to others, to create, to succeed, right? You can be that shy kid who's terrified to go to school, and you can be that very sensitive child in the class who notices other people's moods and is there to support a friend through something, right? It's the same trait, but how you use that trait is going to be different. And that's where parenting comes in. The reason we need to know this is because so many parents come into my practice with parental self-doubt syndrome. They really think it's their fault. They really think they did this to their child. They really think that they created something in their child that they did not want to create. And when you feel that level of shame and self-doubt, it's very hard to be motivated to change. It's very hard to then have the energy that we need to say, I can do this. I can change my parenting. I'm going to help this kid. So I want to undo that parental self-doubt syndrome. You did not cause this, except maybe genetically, but until gene editing becomes a thing, not on you, right? You didn't cause it. Doesn't mean you can't help your child learn how to deal with it. The only exception, of course, is cases of severe neglect and abuse. Severe neglect and abuse actually can alter the neurodevelopment of a child's brain. But if you were severely abusive or neglectful, chances are you're not watching this video. Or You're an amazing parent whose kid went through something terrible, and you're trying to help your kid put the pieces back together, right? Because even the most amazing parent cannot always control everything that happens to their child. So even in that situation, it's not your fault, and you can fix it. You can be the solution. Now, this is especially true that a child's brain comes that way, and that has implication for our parenting when it comes to what I will call psycho or neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is what we might know as being on the autism spectrum, right? It might mean social pragmatics disorder, where a child is born with a brain that is not hardwired for connection, and connection needs to be taught to them. Psychodiversity is when a child is born with a propensity towards a psychological disorder, what we used to call axis 1 disorders like an anxiety disorder or ADHD or OCD or depression, and their brain is already wired with a propensity towards that. If a child has a problem that's hardwired, right? A problem like anxiety, depression, OCD, all of those psychodiversities, parents very often are going to doubt themselves because it feels like I must have done something wrong. And unfortunately, the world is so good at telling us we've done things wrong. Maybe you were too strict. Maybe you weren't strict enough. Maybe you weren't too structured. Maybe you didn't use the cry it out method. Maybe you did use the cry it out method and now you affected your kid's attachment. Maybe you gave them too much sugar. Maybe you restricted their eating and you were into nutrition and that made them have all sorts of issues. It doesn't matter. Whatever you've done, there's going to be some armchair expert somewhere in the world who's going to tell you that you caused this child's problem. And I am here to tell you that based on a lot of child development research, it simply isn't true. It's not your fault. It is your problem to help your child, but it's not your fault. So let's undo that parental self-doubt syndrome right now. Now let's talk about what we can do, because where do parents really doubt themselves? They doubt themselves when they're raising a psycho or neurodiverse child, especially if it's their first child. And here's where I'm going to explain something to you. When you have either you're parenting a psycho or neurodiverse child relatively early in your parenting career, or you have reason to doubt your own competence. I struggled academically in high school. Must be I'm too dumb to be a good parent. I have my own mental health challenges. Must be that's affecting my child. I was raised in a secular environment. Maybe I don't know how to raise from children, right? All of those things are going to conspire together, your own self-doubt, plus the fact that you're parenting a psycho or neurodiverse child relatively early in your parenting career. They're going to conspire together to make you really doubt yourself. Here's the thing though, did you know that a neurotypical child, a psychotypical child, actually teaches his or her parent how to parent? That's right. If you're a first-time mother, your baby's brain is teaching you how to parent while you are parenting your child and teaching your child all sorts of things about the world. So your baby's brain is wired to attach to you. Your baby's brain is wired to help you learn something we call attunement, which is a component of attachment where you can figure your baby out and anticipate their needs and be responsive to their needs. As much as you're teaching your baby's teaching you. The psycho or neurodiverse brain lacks that ability to some extent, depending on the psycho or neurodiversity. So when I have a mother of their first child was on the autism spectrum, this is when I really get that parental self-doubt, because if that baby didn't do what other babies' brains do, which is teach you how to be a parent. So of course you don't know how to be a parent. And even more so, everything we know about parenting comes from typically developing children. So you read a parenting book with all sorts of tips on how to parent, and then you try it with your psychodiverse child, and boy, does it backfire. There's a lot of like typical parenting techniques. For example, if you have a child who's mildly a bit anxious about something, you might sort of expose them to what they're scared of and like tolerate the crying and the distress and talk them through it, and they'll be fine. You do that to somebody with a severe anxiety disorder, you're going to get an even more severe anxiety disorder. That is not how we parent kids who are severely anxious. We might indeed introduce them to something they're afraid of, but only after they fully understand why we're doing it and they have bought in, and we've created an entire self-soothing ritual that we're going to use during that exposure. We don't just throw them in there. So you're going to read this parenting book with all these great ideas, but it doesn't apply to your kids. So then you're going to feel like even worse of a parent, because this technique, everyone swears by this book. She's amazing. This technique, everyone says it works. And then I tried it. Must be that I'm just not smart enough to figure this out. When the truth is, no, you're just not parenting the same breed of child as the child that this book is writing about. I call this type of parenting Peter Rabbit. Okay. Do you remember those children's tales by Beatrix Potter? They're about this little rabbit named Peter, who is a naughty little rabbit. And he lives with his mom and his three siblings named Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail are good little rabbits. They always do what they're told. They seem to sit inside and eat tea and scones a lot, and they seem to stitch on samplers a lot. Peter is a naughty little rabbit. Peter likes to escape next door to Mr. McGregor's garden, where Mr. McGregor will chase after him with a shotgun and try to trap him and turn him into rabbit pie. And Peter likes to steal Mr. McGregor's lettuce and steal Mr. McGregor's carrots. And of course, Mama Rabbit is constantly admonishing Peter, don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. I believe Peter's dad died in Mr. McGregor's garden. So yeah, don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. But Peter keeps going into Mr. McGregor's garden. It's just too tempting. And he loses his beautiful blue waistcoat. He loses his gold buttons. There's all sorts of adventures Peter has in Mr. McGregor's garden. It's very easy to parent Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontails, right? When you're parenting Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, all the techniques in books work. You say to children, 5 more minutes, and then we're going inside. And in 5 minutes, you say, okay, children, we're leaving the playground now. And your Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail very nicely, say, okay, mommy, and they run over to you and they leave the playground. Peter, on the other hand, is now standing on top of the playground's roof where it says, do not climb, and doing a handstand, right? When you're the mom of Peter Rabbit, and I've been the mom of Peter Rabbit, and I've been the mom of Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, it can be really, really, really challenging when you're at that sitter play and all the Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail little girls are sitting nicely on their chairs, singing their little hearts out, and your Peter Rabbit is standing on her chair, laying under her chair, holding her chair over her head, making weird faces at the audience, running off the stage, right? Refusing to get on the stage. It's very easy to feel judged. It's very easy to feel like, I don't know what to do. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed and to look around at all the other mothers and say, oh my gosh, they know what they're doing and I just don't. And then of course, go back to childhood feelings of whenever you were not good at something, right? Go to any parenting decision you ever made and say, that must have been the mistake. I let him cry it out when he was 3. That's what did it. I didn't let him cry it out. That's what did it. I gave him too much sugar. I didn't give him enough sugar, right? When really, they're just parenting Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. You're parenting Peter Rabbit. It's a whole different animal, right? And that sensation can be so painful. So let's spend a minute really processing the fact that if you're parenting Peter Rabbit, your baby's brain did not teach you how to parent. The way you're going to parent has to be fundamentally different, not just differences in degree. It's not like be a little more firm or a little less firm, but it has to be a completely different form of parenting than when you're parenting Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. And number 3, you can learn this. Just like if you would have had a neurotypical child, you would have learned how to parent. You're going to learn this because it can be learned. Parenting is a skill. It's not inborn. I think maternal instinct is a giant myth. Any maternal instinct that we don't have naturally, we can learn. Parenting is more a skill than it is something innate. Parenting the Peter Rabbits of the world is a trauma that almost nothing can prepare us for. We're not ready for it. We're primed for parenting. We're taught that passing on our Masorah is the most important thing we can do as parents. Our children's successes feel like our successes. Their failures feel like our failures. So it's its own category of trauma. When they fail, it doesn't only feel like our failure, it feels like we failed, period. Mostly when we're parenting Peter Rabbit, we don't even realize it. The baby's born, seemingly like every other baby. Sometimes the baby's even unusually precocious, crawling faster, talking earlier, being really cute. And then they start going to school, and some of our doubt starts to creep in. What should be mildly difficult, separating from mommy, wearing a slightly uncomfortable uniform, going to school the first day, sitting in a desk, becomes extraordinarily difficult. Like it's this mountain that's way too high to climb, but everybody else seems to be able to do it. In this rush, and I feel like my profession can sometimes be part of this mistake, part of the way that we can underserve the parents of Peter Rabbits. So in this rush to get this child, some sort of a plan, create a plan to make school better, to get a diagnosis, to get some clarity into what's going on, to follow a treatment plan, we sometimes lose sight of the parents, right? We're so focused on helping the child succeed. It's like we're looking at the child as the lollipop, and the parent is just the wrapper, right? They're the ones who pay. They're the ones who transport. They're the ones who do the therapy homework. They're the ones who, are the cheerleaders and the coaches and the motivators of the kid, but they're just like the wrapper. The kid is what's important. But do we ever think as professionals, what is it like to parent Peter Rabbit? Do we say this to the parent? This is amazing. You are doing a fantastic job. I also have another analogy that I use for this. I call this the parenting Olympics, right? Imagine you have some guy who's like in the neighborhood league. He plays baseball on the weekends and he's really good. He's the star player of the neighborhood. You have some little kid who, plays on some like school team and he's the point guard in basketball and he's fabulous. And then you take that kid or that adult and you drop them into the Olympics. What's going to happen? You could imagine, right? What looks like star playing in the neighborhood league is like less than below the lowest possible score in the Olympics, right? When you are parenting Peter Rabbit, you are in the Olympics. You didn't sign up, you didn't buy a ticket, you didn't train for it, but here you are. You're in the Olympics. A little bit when you have that parent or that well-meaning teacher or even that therapist who makes you feel like you're not the best parent in the world, you're doing something wrong, I want you to think the other way. I want you to think, Hashem selected me to be in the parenting Olympics. He didn't select you. Oh, well, I guess you don't quite have the skills that I have. Like, poor you. You have to parent a boring old Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who are the good little bunnies who just do what they're told. I get to parent Peter Rabbit, this kid with like endless energy who can get so much done. This kid who's, yeah, maybe she's really shy right now, but that sensitivity that she has, it's going to stand her in great stead in her life, right? My kid is moody, but that means passionate. And when we figure out what this kid can be passionate about, the sky is the limit, because I was selected to be in the parenting Olympics. The self-doubt drains our energies and it makes us give up. The second thing to think about is never evaluate your parenting skills based on your child's behavior. It's the wrong rubric to use, right? When you see a kid who's well behaved in the playground, the kid who's singing her heart out at the Chumash party or at the sitter play, the boy who's so polite, don't necessarily think, oh, he must have had fabulous parents. I'm sure he did. But it's also likely that he was born a Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, right? The way we evaluate somebody's parenting, right, is based on, did you create a proper parenting plan for this child? And did you stick to the plan no matter the provocation? Did you do what you said you would do? And that's it. If you have that little girl who's scared to get on stage at her sitter play, and you tell her, I will sit at the corner of the stage on the bottom step, holding you on my lap, and as soon as you feel comfortable, you can go on stage, and the kid stays on your lap the whole time, you are a fabulous mother. You did exactly what you said you would do in the manner you said you would do it, and you ignored any judgmental looks from anybody, and you were there for your child in the way that you said you would be. When you stick to a consequence, you tell your child, if XYZ happens, the consequence is going to be ABC, and then you do it. Even if the kid's crying, even if people next to you online in the grocery store are staring at you judgmentally, but you told the child that this is going to be the consequence, You're at the grocery store. You told the child, if you hit your sister, we're not going in. And then even though it would be more convenient to go in, you don't go in. You are a fantastic parent. You inconvenienced yourself for the sake of teaching this child something. You stuck to what you said you would stick to. You were there for your child in the way you said you would be. You were reliable and predictable as a parent. You did phenomenal. That other people are staring at you, wondering why you're standing stock still in the parking lot waiting for the 5 minutes that you said you would wait before going in. Let them wonder. They're probably parenting Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. They are not in the Olympics. They were not complimented as much as you were to do that. Whether the kid behaves well or poorly, I get my mommy points if I intervene in the way I decided. And if you're saying like, but I don't know how to intervene, okay, there's no shame in asking for help. This is another way we undo parental self-doubt. This is where getting a parenting teacher, taking parenting classes, reading books about your child's specific profile, reading a book about anxiety in children, reading a book about autism spectrum disorder and parenting it, reading a book about kids with poor social skills or ADHD or anything, and then saying, oh, based on this book and what this person is saying, this is how I have to alter my parenting. And then we alter our parenting. There is no shame in getting help. There's no shame in saying, wait, I think I actually need to learn this. Who can teach this to me? I recently had this where a mother came into me and said that she believes her children have insecure attachment. They're anxious, they're shy, they're clingy because she herself did not have great attachment as a baby. And she feels like it's all over. Like I didn't provide them with proper attachment experiences. They're like 5, 7, and 9 now. It's all over. Until I pointed out to her that there's also research on something called earned security, right? So if someone has insecure attachment, we can change that by giving them security experiences and creating earned security. So it's not all over just because they're older than their babyhood period. Even if she did make some attachment mistakes back then, even if she was sick and she was preoccupied with other things at that time, she was like physically ill. So she was preoccupied. Okay, so give them earned security instead. Nothing is over, even if we've made a mistake. We simply have to learn a new way. So if I'm doing the work to create a parenting plan that my child needs, even if I made mistakes before, even if I didn't know everything before, if I'm intervening in the way that I've decided beforehand, even if other people don't get it, gold medal in the parenting Olympics. And this is why diagnosing a child, giving a child understanding what's going on. How did this kid come out of the box? Why is she so shy? Why is he so active? Why is she such a people pleaser? Why is he so, clingy or moody, right? Getting that diagnosis, figuring out what's going on in that child's brain is never a negative. People very often say, well, I don't want to label my child. But as a therapist, right, as a clinical psychologist, if I don't know what's wrong, how can I fix it, right? So if I can say, oh, this child's brain needs an incredible amount of motor activity, then we can come up with a plan for how to give him that amount of motor activity so that he can then focus in school, right? This child needs a lot of time, a lot of lead time to feel comfortable and secure before she'll be okay going into new environments or meeting new people. Now that we know that, this is empowering. First of all, because you didn't do anything wrong. This is how the kid came out of the box. Second of all, it's empowering because now I know exactly what skills I need to upload into this child's brain so that this child can then thrive. If you're doing that, if you're creating a parenting plan, if you're working with professionals, if you're a parent of a Peter Rabbit and you're sticking to your parenting plan, you got a gold medal in the parenting Olympics. You did an amazing job. So if you're interested in post-traumatic parenting, there are several ways you can find me and you can find my classes. You can find me, you can email me, targetedparenting@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram. I post videos under the handle Dr. Koslowitz Psychology. And you can find the Post-Traumatic Parenting podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Please note, I have strong values around inclusion and making everybody feel welcome. So both my Instagram, Dr. Koslowitz Psychology, and my podcast are filmed with secular audiences in mind so that everybody can feel welcome. Post-traumatic parenting, sadly, is a pretty universal human problem. So if you're looking for from only content that is filtered that way, the Instagram and podcast may not be for you, but you can still find me at targetedparenting@gmail.com. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your attention. I really appreciate Rabbi Goodman for inviting me to be here.